Assalamualaikum, and before I start presenting our research or our findings, I would like to give a greatest gratitude, or I would like to thank Sir Nasir for giving us the opportunity to present our finding of our research. So our research is basically on about air pollution index or API, basically or specifically on the furthest south of Malaysia and the furthest north of Malaysia, which is Kedah and also Johor. So what is air pollution index or API? So basically, air pollution index is a scale to read the air pollution level on a certain place. So there are three problem statements that we found for our research or our study. So the first problem statement is the thick haze caused by the massive or largest open burning in Indonesia, and the second one is about air pollution occurred in developed area compared to developing area on the day or normal day in a regular month. And the third one or the last one is air pollution occurred in developed area compared to developing area on the day or the month of the largest or massive open burning in Indonesia occurred. Next, we proceed with research objective. So the first research objective is to study the air pollution index before and after of districts in Johor and Kedah during the massive open burning in Indonesia. And the second research objective is to study the difference of the air pollution index in developed area compared to the developing area during normal day or regular month. So the third research objective is to study the difference of air pollution index compared to developed area and developing area during the massive open burning in Indonesia. Next, we proceed with research questions. So the first research question is there any difference of air pollution index reading before and after in districts of Johor and Kedah during the massive open burning in Indonesia occurs? The next one is there any difference of API reading or air pollution index reading between developed states and developing states on a regular month? And the last research question is there any difference of API reading or air pollution index reading between the developed state and developing states on the month that the massive open burning occurs? So for hypothesis statements, there are three hypothesis statements. The first hypothesis statement is there is significant difference of the API reading or the air pollution index reading before and after of districts in Kedah and Johor due to the open burning in Indonesia. And the second one is there is significant difference of API reading or air pollution index reading between the developed states and developing states on a regular month. And the last hypothesis statement is there is significant difference of API reading or air pollution index reading between the developed state and developing states on the month that the largest open burning in Indonesia occurs. For the data set, we downloaded the data set from the data.gov.my website. It is a secondary data set, and the name of the file is kedah2018.xlsx and also Johor 2018.xlsx. Both of them in Excel format, or we can say .xlsx format. And the Kedah data set consists of 8,760 observations, while Johor dataset is also consists of 8,760 observations. While for our research, we only need 3 specific months for this research to be done, which is March, June and August, and each one of them consists of 3,440 observations. And of course, the data is not clean, so we need to clean to make sure the analysis can be run. So what is the problem, or what is the thing that are not clean in the data set? So as you can see in the slide, there is a multiplication sign, and also the data is not in numeric. Next, for methodology, So the first thing is research design. So we use before and after test, and the second thing is about sampling technique. We use a quota sampling technique to choose the samples in the data set, and also the third one is about inclusion and exclusion criteria. So we only focus on Kedah and Johor, as there are limits of data set, because not all 14 states of API readings are in the website. And the last one is of instrument tool. So instruments tool, we use a secondary data set, not a primary data set, and also the data set is published by government. So next we proceed with the statistical method. So for observation 1, as you can see in the slide, we use a t-test or before and after t-test, which is the observation 1 is we want to study the air pollution index before and after of districts in Johor and Kedah due to the open burning in Indonesia. And the second objective and the third objective, as you can see in the slide, we use independent t-test where the objective 2 and objective 3 is related, but the difference of objective 2 and 3 is the situation where objective 2 is on a regular month, while on objective 3 we study on the month where the largest open burning in Indonesia occurs.
For the first objective, we want to see the difference between before and after open burning caused by Indonesia for each district in Johor and Kedah. Before the data can be analyzed, we need to make sure a few assumptions must be met in order to perform PET-t-test analysis. The assumptions are that the data must be numerical, there are no independent variables, samples or observations are dependent, and lastly, the observation difference should be normally distributed. The dataset for Johor 2018 and Kedah 2018 is already in numerical, and the variables are dependent variables, means the outcome of the difference between June and August must be depend on each other. To check the normality of the distribution of the data, a histogram and normality curve must be conducted. So, based on the normality curve, plot on the histogram of dataset Johor 2018, 5 districts in Johor which are Batu Pahat, Kluang, Lakin, Pasir Gudang, and Pengerang, all of them histograms are normally distributed because based on the central limit theorem, if the data have more than 30 observations, the histogram is said to be normally distributed. Thus, the assumption is met. Since all the assumptions have been met, the analysis can be run to proceed the analysis by using PET-t-test. Based on the results shown for Batu Pahat, Kluang, Lakin, Pasir Gudang, and Pengerang, all of them have p-value less than 0.05, which we can reject null hypothesis. Thus, we can conclude that all of those 5 districts have different air pollution index readings comparing June and August. Do the different readings of air pollution index have a decreasing or increasing API reading before and after the massive open burning in Indonesia? To compare, is the difference of readings brings good changes or worse? The mean of pre-API, which is in June reading, and post-API, which is in August reading, need to be analyzed and interpreted. For example, for Batu Pahat, the mean of pre-API reading is smaller than post-API reading from 53.84 to 68.01, which slightly increased from June to August. Based on the result and explanation, we can see that an open burning in Indonesia that was done in a large scale brings an impact to the air pollution index reading of districts in Johor. Same application is applied onto Kedah 2018 dataset that have 4 districts in this dataset, which are the data must be numerical, there are no independent variables, samples or observations are dependent, and lastly, the observation difference should be normally distributed. Since the dataset of Kedah 2018 is particularly similar to Johor 2018, therefore all the assumptions have been met, but only the normality of the distribution must be conducted. Based on the results shown, all the histograms with normality curve created from Kedah 2018 by selecting 4 districts in the dataset, which are Langkawi, Alor-Setar, Sungai Petani and Kulim High-Tech, all of the result shows a normally distributed graph. This is because, due to the central theorem, as I mentioned earlier, we know that if the observations in the dataset have more than 30 observations, their graph is said to be normally distributed. Thus, the assumption was met and all of the districts can be analyzed through PET-T test. As you can see from the table of result given all of the 4 districts in Kedah 2018 dataset, we have the same result even though the p-value are different, but all of them are less than 0.05, which we can conclude all districts in dataset Kedah 2018 have different API readings from June compared to August in 2018. As usual, we know there are different readings of API in June 2018 and August 2018. To find out more about it, let's compare the difference reading of API mean. For example, let's look at Langkawi. The mean readings of API for pre is less than post API mean reading, from 37.66 to 48.58, which shows that the air pollution index increased from June to August. Same goes to others, where you can see they are increasing rate. Therefore, the difference of the readings between before the massive open burning in Indonesia bring thick haze to Malaysia has been proven through the analysis and interpretation given. Moving on to the next objective, where we want to know the difference of API reading between each state in a regular month. We are interested to know if there is difference in API reading between developed and developing states, which we have specifically chosen Johor and Kedah in a regular month. As we all know, Johor is a developed state while Kedah is a developing state. As we mentioned on our objective, that we want to measure the difference between developed and developing states in regular month, so we choose to measure it in March, which is a month that there is no big event or haze happening during that month. The process of doing this test is the same as the PET-T test, where we check the assumptions so that we can proceed with the t-test. Before performing t-test, our target sample is the data of average Johor and Kedah in March, which there are 744 of observations in total. So, based on the normality curve plot on the histogram of dataset Johor and Kedah in March, all of the histograms are normally distributed because based on the central limit theorem, if the data have more than 30 observations, the histogram is said to be normally distributed. Thus, the assumption is met. For t-test, we need to check if the variance is equal or not. Unfortunately, our result shows that our p-value is less than 0.05, which we reject the null hypothesis where our variance is not equal. Even though the variance is not equal, we still can proceed the t-test by setting the var.equal coding to false. As you can see from the table of results, given the p-value is less than 0.05, which we can conclude that we reject null hypothesis. Thus, there is a significant difference in API reading between Johor and Kedah in March. To find out more about it, let's compare the difference in reading of API mean between Johor and Kedah in March. As you can see from the t-test table, the average reading for Johor is 30.18, while Kedah is 52.52, where there is a big difference between the reading. We can conclude that Johor is a developed state where they have technologies that can regulate the air pollution, whereas Kedah is a developing state which might not have technologies to help them reduce the air pollution. But not least, our last objective, which is difference between the air pollution index in developed and developing states in the largest open burning months occurs. For this objective, we will use the t-test to identify the difference of API reading between Johor and Kedah during the largest open burning that caused a bad haze. Our intention is to investigate which of the chosen states is the most affected by the bad haze. So, based on the normality curve plot on the histogram of dataset, Johor and Kedah in August, all of the histograms are normally distributed because, again, based on the central limit theorem, if the data have more than 30 observations, the histogram is said to be normally distributed, thus the assumption met. Based on the result shown, the equality of variance is not met because the p-value is less than 0.05, which will reject the null hypothesis, even though the variance is not equal. As I said earlier, we still can proceed the t-test by setting the var not equal according to false. As you can see from the table of results given, the p-value is less than 0.05, which we can conclude that we reject null hypothesis. Thus, there is a significant difference in API reading between Johor and Kedah in August. To find out more about it, let's compare the difference reading of API mean between Johor and Kedah in August. As you can see from the t-test table, the average reading for Johor is 36.09, while Kedah is 56.01, where there is a big difference between the reading. We can conclude that Kedah is the most affected area rather than Johor. During the bad haze period, the highest API reading recorded is 154, which is in Kedah. We can obtain by using max function in R. The reading actually reaches the unhealthy zone with the range of 101 to 200.
So for conclusion, the main objective have been achieved, which we can see that the air pollution index in two states before and after are affected by the open burning in large scale happening in Indonesia. And also the air pollution index also affected by the development of certain provinces or districts, but a few factors must be considered, as the more development of a place, the greater the technology that can help in reducing the air pollution index. And also the more the development needed to be done in a place, the more the industrial activity needed, like factory industry and also transportation. For recommendation, the easiest way to prevent the same event occur every year is by reaching an agreement where every country that were affected by the thick haze caused by the open burning of that corpse plant should give a warning to their neighboring country as it affects the health of the people in the country, and suggest them to use biomass technology instead of burning it to settle the problem easily. Next, for inside the country, the easiest way to reduce the air pollution index is by using public transportation as a small step to decrease the pollution of air instead of using own transportation, unless the situation is not suitable for them to do so, and start grow a green plan. That is very cliche, but even though does not bring any effect in short term, but in the long run the impact is much bigger from what we expect. So that's all. Thank you for having us, and Assalamualaikum.